So last week I acknowledged the long hiatus that this podcast has been on. I mean, it was just about a year. It was just about a year. And there are reasons for that. And I think someday maybe I will talk about them. I'm not in a rush to do it. There were reasons, but yeah, it was a pretty long hiatus. And during that hiatus, there were a lot of stories that came up that I kind of wish that I would have had the opportunity to sit down and record a podcast segment about, but I just didn't have the opportunity to do it. And as things tend to be, a lot of these stories, they tend to be pretty cyclical. And so I have had an opportunity come up since then to talk about one of those. And the story in particular that I'm going to talk about actually has a lot to do with Bud Light and Dylan Mulvaney. So as I'm pretty sure that just about everybody must be aware, I think it was pretty close to about a year ago. Well, no, actually, it was more like, oh God, it was 8 months ago that this whole thing happened. Because it was in March. It had to do with the March Madness tournament. Bud Light turned around, and they gave a bunch of money to Dylan Mulvaney to put some content on his Instagram account, or is it his YouTube account, or whatever it is that they do, and basically just to promote their product, bring him on board as a brand ambassador. They even made a special Dylan Mulvaney Bud Light can, and a lot of people, they didn't seem to care for that. And it turned out to be an extremely divisive bit of marketing that, depending on what you look at it, I mean, it sounds like maybe it might have cost the VP in charge of marketing for Bud Light, Alyssa Heinerschneid, it might have wound up costing her career. And it cost the Bud Light company and Anheuser-Busch, cost them something like $13 billion worth of cap space, of market cap space. That is a tremendous loss for any company, even a company the size of Anheuser-Busch and InBev. Like, that is a catastrophic loss. And it all started on account of something that I actually kind of think is pretty widely misunderstood. And there are reasons why that whole thing was so misunderstood. And I think that a lot of it had to do with just people misunderstanding exactly what it was that Bud Light was trying to accomplish with that. And people actually kind of fell into that category, on both sides of what you would call the social divide surrounding this LGBTQ issue, this LGBTQ community, whatever you would like to call it. People that would find themselves on the socially and politically progressive side of it came out and said that that Bud Light was moving on, from its old customers, and leaving them behind. And a lot of people who were traditionally, kind of fell into that market, that market space where they were traditionally drinkers of Bud Light. I think a lot of them did feel betrayed and abandoned. I don't think that's actually what happened. I think both of those groups of people are wrong. But this is what the perception was. I mean, call me crazy. I can walk and chew gum at the same time. So I think I do understand how it is that a company could have an eye on keeping its existing customer base, but also expanding it, to sell their product to new customer bases, to expand their customer base, to increase the size of their market. These are not bad things. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And that's all that Bud Light was trying to do when they struck up this brand ambassadorship with Dylan Mulvaney, who, for my purpose, I suppose that I have a very difficult time, getting a firm grip on exactly who Dylan Mulvaney is. I guess right down to even like what pronouns a person is expected to use in relation to Dylan Mulvaney. I'm sure that I've already used the wrong ones, in this segment. And actually, I kind of do apologize if I have done that. I don't do that deliberately. It's just, when a person even hasn't gone so far as to change their name, it just, it becomes a little bit more difficult to actually kind of just, mentally categorize that, in that different way. So definitely nothing was, certainly no offense was intended with that. But in my view, I kind of view Dylan Mulvaney, more as a comedian. This is not a person that I really, take super seriously. I don't think that we're intended to take super seriously. Admittedly, I haven't seen very much of their content, so I don't really even I'm not even really clear on whether or not Dylan Mulvaney takes themselves seriously. But I kind of view them more as a comedian, so I really don't. So I'm definitely not the kind of person that's going to leave behind a beer brand, just because they do a deal with a comedian who, honestly, I don't really find them that funny. I don't really find Dylan Mulvaney to be that funny. But there seem to be a lot of fans. So obviously this appeals to somebody. Maybe it's not for me, maybe it's for you. No, that's fine. But the reason why I bring all this up is because the UFC just did a sponsorship agreement with Bud Light. Bud Light's going to be a sponsor of the UFC once again. And to be honest with you, I wasn't aware that had ever changed. Because previously Bud Light had been a sponsor of the UFC for quite a long time. Actually, it even came up, semi-famously during one of Brock Lesnar's post-fight interviews after he defended the heavyweight championship of the world. He jumped on the mic and he said that he was going to go home and he was going to drink a cold Coors Light and jump on his wife, and he said that he was going to do that because Bud Light wouldn't give him any money. They wouldn't give any sponsorship money directly, so he just kind of stuck a middle finger in their face and promoted their competitor, who apparently, I don't know. I wonder if Coors Light was giving him money. Oh, that's a good question, actually. I just kind of realized just now that I don't actually know the answer to that. But anyway, that's not really what matters here. What matters is this is not that big of a change. This is something that has gone on before. But the people that are still holding a grudge against Bud Light over this Dylan Mulvaney schmoz, they're now out again screaming that, now we're going to boycott the UFC. We just boycotted Anheuser-Busch and InBev to the tune of $13 billion lost. Who knows? Maybe it was even more than that. $13 billion, I think, was the last number that I had heard that they had lost over this whole thing. But now they're going to move on, and they're going to boycott the UFC now. Now they think that they're going to bring down the UFC over a sponsorship deal. Now, I got to be brutally honest with you. I kind of feel like if you're going to try to bring the UFC down over a sponsorship deal, with a company that traditionally has been one of their I do kind of feel like if you're a fan of this sport and you're going to try to bring down the UFC, over a sponsorship with a company that has traditionally been a brand partner, of this company, I kind of feel like you don't really give a crap about what is or is not good for this sport. Because let's be honest with ourselves, there is a reason why the UFC has such an absolute, dominant brand identity over this sport. So much so that even though there are, numerous different companies, it's a shrinking number, unfortunately, but there are some other promotions out there, that you can watch if you do want to. And the UFC is so dominant that people who aspire to be MMA fighters, well, some of them still do tell people that they quote-unquote train UFC. I have definitely heard that phrase uttered in my presence. And I never take it seriously myself. I think that anybody who would tell somebody that they quote-unquote train UFC using those exact words is kind of a retard. You can train MMA. You're not training UFC. And there's certainly no other company out there that's putting on like full fight cards on network TV, 3 times a month. So if you're a fan of this sport and you want to be able to watch this sport regularly, unless you want to subscribe to Paramount Plus so that you can get access to one championship, which is, I mean, I guess not a terrible, it's not a bad alternative to the UFC. But unless you want to go that route, if you want the convenience of being able to watch on ESPN, 3 out of 4 weeks of the month, hey, right now, the UFC are the ones to see. Oh, that rhymed. that was not intentional. That was not intentional. I guess that rhyme chose me. I guess I'm the new Bubba Sparks. But personally, I would even go so far as to suggest that a successful boycott of the UFC, which destroyed this organization and, put them out of business, might actually destroy this sport altogether. I don't think that's an unreasonable assessment to make. I mean, reasonably, like, where else are you going to go? Like Bellator? They just got bought out by PFL. And PFL, well, they have a very interesting product there, but they're not quite UFC caliber just yet. They're still quite a ways away from that. So I guess the question that I have for the people that are pushing these boycotts, are you really going to destroy this sport that you claim that you enjoy? Well, I mean, over what? Over the idea that, some gay guy somewhere is going to drink the same beer as you and you can't handle that? Like, you're not in the room, with this, this proverbial person, watching them drink the same beer that you drink. And somehow that bothers you so much that you would rather just, destroy what is still the best thing that this sport has going. Just out of spite? Like, come on. Come on. Don't do that.